Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website address for you is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I've been getting so many questions at dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I've been getting like several dozen a day, and most people are request to remain anonymous. But I'm basically making a video for everyone who asks me a question because I figure that there's other people out there that have the same question. Plus, it makes for great content, I believe, or I hope, for this site. So today's question, this was actually submitted back in May 19th, and I'm shooting this May 30th. Hey Dan, got a question for you regarding budgets. More and more sponsors only want to pay for a certain percentage of screen failures per randomized patient. This is true, by the way, for those of you who don't know. We'll get into that in this video a little. The screen fail rate is often based on past experience. But what if the screen fail rate in this trial is higher? Shouldn't they amend the contract and pay for the other screen failures? More often I start this discussion but keep losing, and I feel we are paying for their bad management. Excellent question, loaded question, tons of content. I'm trying to keep them under 10 minutes. So first of all, yes, if you are familiar with budgets in clinical trials, you'll know that sponsors usually they don't pay for all your screen failures, okay? They pay for a ratio. So sometimes they'll pay for one screen failure for every subject you randomize. Sometimes they'll pay 2 screen failures for every subject you randomize. Sometimes they'll pay 4 screen failures for every subject you randomize. I've seen it as high as 5. They'll pay for 5 screen failures for every subject you randomize. That's for the very difficult studies. The simpler ones, they'll pay on a 1-to-1 ratio. Or they'll just cap you off and say, we don't care how many people you randomize, but we're not paying more than 5 screen failures. So there's different ways that sponsors pay the research clinics for their screen failures. And it sounds like for your study, because you did say the screen fail rate is often based on past experience. This is true. But many times these sponsors, they just go by their own budgets. They go by what they figure the study will cost and what their enrollment rates and screen failure rates are expected to be based on past studies. But very often, because not many sponsors are doing clinical trials for the first time on new indications. So many times they're using those site feasibility surveys that they send new sites before the study even starts, and they ask the sites to give their projections, and sites very often in these cases exaggerate how many people they think they can screen, and they very often exaggerate how many people they think they will not screen fail. And in reality, when these studies start, everyone discovers that the screen fail rate is a lot higher than people think, and enrollment is a lot more difficult than people think. Or that people say. And you have to understand it's a business. And it's a business for both. The sites are in it to get the studies. So it's their responsibility to make sure that they get the studies and retain the studies for their sites. So they want to make sure that they impress the sponsors. But as you can see, exaggerations like this do hurt everyone in the long run, because these sponsors usually build their budgets based off of these expectations or the figures that people are projecting. These projections, I should say. I was looking for the word. So what you're saying is, what if the screen fail rate in this trial is higher? Should they amend the contract and pay for the other screen fails? So here's the thing. Obviously, this first bit of information won't help you, but you should really try to get as high of a screen fail to randomized ratio as possible when you're negotiating a new budget. All right. Now, since you're already, sounds like halfway through the study, and you're experiencing a higher screen fail rate than you thought, you can request, and you should request, an increase in screen failures. And if you can provide a good argument, and if you can argue that other sites are having similar issues as far as not being able to enroll people due to screen failures, the sponsor might listen to you. If you can argue that you will change your recruitment practices and randomize better subjects if they can increase your screen fail reimbursement, that's another option. I then asked a follow-up question to this person. I said, she said, seems often I'm the only site. They don't listen and want to adapt. Contracts often state no other funding will be given, and they tend to hide behind this. And then I suggest that you can always tell them you will have to stop screening due to this issue and see what they say. So I've actually done this before. I've ran into this issue. First of all, look at your newsletters and see how many subjects other sites are enrolling. If you are way behind the average, you have no chance in renegotiating this, I'm sorry to say. But if you're in the top 20% of sites randomizing, I mean, you're one of the top enrollers, but you also happen to have lots of screen failures, they're very likely to give you an amendment because they want you to continue doing that work. So it's kind of one of those things where if you're doing a good job and if you're providing clean data and you're enrolling a lot of patients, they'll listen to you. And if not, honestly, it sounds harsh, but they will pretty much just tell you to go away. Not in those words, but they won't amend your budget. And you really don't want to do that because you want repeat business from these sponsors and you want to let them know. And they understand that this is a business relationship and they need to keep you happy in order for their study to be a success. And nobody wants screen fails. You don't want screen fails. Sponsor doesn't want screen failures. Try to find a way to make this work. And I would definitely go back to the budget and amend it. And if you're way behind the other sites as far as how many patients you've enrolled, I would randomize 2 or 3 in a row. So make sure you do a really good job at selecting your next 3 or 4 patients. Get them all randomized. Try not to have any screen failures, and then go back to the drawing board and tell them, look, we found a new strategy that seems to be working. Now we'd like to go back and have reimbursement for at least some of our screen failures and some of our future screen failures so we can continue enrolling good quality patients for you and provide good quality data. See what happens. Worst case scenario, this is a business for you as well, I understand. And if you have other studies, tell them you're going to not screen anymore because other sponsors are paying you at a better rate for screen failures. And that's not the route I would recommend first, but it should be like the last resort. See what they say. Hopefully it helps. I want to give my clinical trial guru producers a shout out. Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Erdhart Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone, Darshan Kulkarni, Biopharm Systems, Zymewire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, and St. Paul Medical Research Center in Miami, Florida. Thank you all very much, and we kept it under 10 minutes. Thank you. Keep your questions coming. Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I love answering your questions as best as I can. Thank you. Bye-bye.